Another point to note here is hybrid warfare. All right. These are some, when in the previous classes that I've spoken to you about in essay writing tips and several of those other aspects too, I've spoken about key sentences and key words. So these are the keywords that you need to make note of. Hybrid warfare. If you use these kind of intelligent words in your answers, especially in your mains, this is what is going to make your answer different from anybody else, and is going to ensure that the invigilator or the person who's correcting your papers understands that this person knows his or her stuff and is talking sense and is talking something different. That is what you need to.
An announcement to make before I start the analysis. Of course, we have launched 14 new courses at the Bharata First Knowledge Center. It's your one-stop destination for all your competitive exams, and we totally now have 26 courses at the Knowledge Center, and we are covering a wide gamut of areas. Do go to kc.bharatafirst.com and register now. We have an early bird discount offer, and all these 26 courses are available at less than 1,000 rupees per course. So it's a whole new learning experience where hundreds are reaping the benefits of the Knowledge Center. Don't be left behind. Register right now and experience this all new way of learning. You won't be disappointed, just as so many others have thoroughly enjoyed this learning experience.
Frank, see, these targeted killings are definitely, they have changed the security perception in Kashmir. In fact, there is a sense of fear amongst the minority community. Even the majority community is not feeling very comfortable to venture out, and these such targeted killings of civilians have definitely instilled a sense of fear. This reminds of the incidents.
So see, so here's a note. The aim of the terrorists is to create a sense of fear in the minority community, and that's why we've seen targeted killings in Kashmir. What has happened in the recent past is, over the last few weeks, the terror elements within Kashmir have decided to, take soft targets, and hence we've seen members of the minority community being killed, and quite a few incidents that have taken place over the last few weeks. And the message is clear. The message is that they want to instill fear amongst the public, and they do not want it to continue.
Incidents when we were young SPs in 90, and when minorities were pushed out of Kashmir by targeted killing of minority leaders, resulting into their exodus. But fortunately, India of today is not India of 1990s, and same even Kashmir, the society, the security apparatus, the government is very proactive. The security forces, the security.
So there are signs of what happened in the 90s is what Mr. S.P. Ved is suggesting. Who is Mr. S.P. Ved? S.P. Ved is the former Director General of Police of Jammu and Kashmir. He has served there for several years and was considered to be one of the best and top cops of the erstwhile state of Jammu and Kashmir. And he has worked with the security agencies from close quarters and knows Kashmir in and out. And he is talking about how there are signs of what happened in the 90s when the insurgency took place. So in the 1990s as well, insurgency was at its height. Several of the Kashmiri Pandits and the minority community there was targeted. They were all sent away. Their houses were burned. They were driven out of their own homes. So that is what is being. I mean, it's not reached that level because the security forces have taken control now, and the situation has changed dramatically and drastically. But the idea is the same, to instill fear in the people. So this is just the early signs. So it needs to be nipped in the bud, and it needs to be dealt with an iron fist, and needs to be dealt with immediately. And that's how it is right now. The only difference between 1990 and 2021 is that we are better prepared.
Security grid is very strong, and people also in Kashmir Valley, both the majority community as well as minority, are much more wiser in the sense that they. See, I personally feel it is three-fourfold aim. Number one, there was a.
So, what is the role of Pakistan, and what does Pakistan want to achieve from all of this? Why is Pakistan doing this, and how to proceed?
There was a sagging morale of the terrorist organizations after relentless operations for last 3-4 years, and particularly after abrogation of Article 370 and 35A. A lot of leadership was eliminated. The ranks were eliminated. In fact, they were finding it, the numbers were depleting, and morale of the terrorists was sagging. Replenishing AK-47, the larger weapons, was becoming difficult. So terrorist organizations were finding it difficult to engage with security forces, and rather, whenever they were engaging, they were losing their men and their material. So I think it is a change in the strategy by the ISI, in the sense that to execute such, it is a low investment, high return kind of proposition for the ISI.
So you got that right. So why is Pakistan doing this? Very simple. It is low investment, high return proposition for the ISI. There is nothing more to it, because without spending too much of money, without even still understanding who has gone ahead and carried out these murders or this targeted killing, they have achieved so much. And what have they spent in the progress? Hardly anything. They have basically gone ahead and done this without spending too much of money. They have just infiltrated terrorists into the system in Kashmir, gone ahead, killed a few people of the minority community, targeted them, and instilled a sense of fear. And you saw the minority community immediately react to this and say that, they're scared. And why wouldn't they be? It is our job to protect them. And unfortunately, we have failed at doing that. And this is what Pakistan wants.
If I am handler in ISI handling Kashmir, I would prefer something like this, where you create 3, 4, 5 groups of 2 each, and just arm them with small weapons like pistols, grenades, revolvers, and you can create scare, the kind of scare which you are seeing all across the valley.
So that is it, right? So what has changed? You saw Mr. Wade talking about Article 350, 370, I beg your pardon, and 35A. Remember one thing, Article 370 has not been abrogated. This is for everybody's information. Certain sections of Article 370 have been abrogated. So don't make the mistake. Don't make the mistake of saying that Article 370 has been abrogated. That is point number 1. Okay. Now, special status is what has been taken away, and that is what we need to take note of. So what has changed after abrogation of special status? Let's listen to what Major General Ashwini Sivaj has to say. He served for over 2 decades in Kashmir, and he has charge of an entire battalion there over the years, and he has taken care of all the security related aspects of that particular region. So let us hear what he has to say about this.
Abrogation of Article 70 and 35A, the complete narrative of Jammu and Kashmir changed. Now the militancy came down. All-out operation was going at a very fast pace. You find that 400 terrorists were killed in last about 2 years. Leadership of Lashkar-e-Toba, Jaise Mohammed, Hizbul Mujahideen was wiped off. NIA had choked the Hawala money which was coming through courier. Pathar, that stone throwing business also stopped to quite an extent. And thereafter, this radicalization of youth in South Kashmir also came and dropped tremendously. Now, the whole environment which was changing in Jammu and Kashmir was for development. You'll find that tourism was at the record time high. You find that some industry also venturing in Jammu and Kashmir. Number of medical college and degree college also coming. So you can see the environment in Jammu and Kashmir was of a development and progress, which was not to the liking of Pakistan. Pakistan thought they have lost the game. And at the top of that, the counter-infiltration grid of Indian armed forces was so strong, they were not able to send a fresh infiltration. And hence the weapons were also become very short. As far as residual terrorists which were left, they were about 150 or so. In case if the counter-terrorism kept on going like this, we could have achieved a finishing of insurgency or militancy in another about 2 years. Now, having said so, what has happened is there has been a change, especially due to what is happening in Afghanistan. Now, that has made a tremendous impact in Jammu. If you
aspect, what has changed on the ground ever since special status has been abrogated in Jammu and Kashmir over the last 2019, August 15, 19, 20, 21, 2 years and few months, is that tourism has gone up. Number of stone pelting incidents has come down drastically. Several terrorists have been eliminated, so much to say that it had come down to a few hundreds that were remaining there in Kashmir. Now, of course, the Pakistanis are working extremely hard to try and infiltrate more and more people into the system, into Kashmir itself. So, tourism, stone pelting incidents coming down, number of Kashmiri youth being killed also has come down drastically. What is the main challenge as far as a Kashmiri is concerned? The main challenge for a Kashmiri is to ensure that their children come back home safe once they leave the house in the morning. So far, what has happened is they were not even sure about whether their kids would come back, whether their children would come back home safe. But that has changed now. And the government is also looking at investing heavily in the region. At the end of the day, if the economy does well, the people don't want anything else. And that is a point in case that we can take out of Bangladesh as well. Otherwise, Bangladesh would have gone the Pakistan way. We would have seen radicalization and we would have seen extremism reach its peak. But Sheikh Hasina has been able to keep it under control only because on the economic front, Bangladesh is doing well. So in Kashmir as well, that is what we need to focus on. We need to get in more, industries and economic activity needs to be kicked off in Kashmir. The government is trying that. Let's hope that it happens sooner rather than later. Now, another aspect that we need to look at as far as Kashmir is concerned is that the Taliban coming to power in Afghanistan has had on what is happening in Kashmir. What kind of an impact has it had? What kind of an impact is it going to have going forward as well? We'll listen in now.
If you take your mind back in 1990, when the Soviet Union had withdrew from Afghanistan, that is the time when Mujahideen came in Jammu and Kashmir along the Stinger missile. And that is the time when the militancy and terrorism started. Now, how it is linked with Afghanistan is 2-3 things. One is that, very cleverly, the Pakistan has first mooted an idea of a ceasefire with India in February this year. And we accepted that as a good neighbor. But what actually they did, they concentrated toward their western sector, toward Afghanistan. Having achieved what they wanted, the Taliban has already come in Afghanistan. They have got a strategic depth. Now is the time they have shifted the focus back to Jammu and Kashmir. Now, 2-3 things very importantly have happened. That 8,000 to 10,000 Laskar Toba Jaishe Mohammed terrorists which were fighting in Afghanistan along with the Taliban against Afghan forces and American forces are now available to the ISI to be pumped in Jammu and Kashmir. And complete launch pads are full. About 500 terrorists are sitting on a launch pad. Then there are about 2,000-3,000 sitting in a staging area and another 2,000-3,000 in training camp. So much is the terrorists waiting to be infiltrated. That's a very different thing that we are not letting them to infiltrate by a strong infiltration grid. Having said so, what they are now doing is that one is there is a change of tactics as far as the infiltration attempts are concerned. Now, what is that? One is that initially when they were short of drone, they have made short of ammunition and weapons, they have made use of drones. There are a lot of weapons and ammunition has also come through drones, but it wasn't sufficient to keep the militancy on in Jammu and Kashmir. Hence, this hybrid warfare has been started, which was low investment, high yield warfare, which DGP was trying to convey. Basically, to kill one and terrorize 100. And second thing is, those people who were basically part of the society, give OGW, give them a small weapon, let them go and hit the target which is being directed, and thereafter come and mix with the society. Very difficult to detect. Now that is the new pattern which was started by ISI in hinterland, because they realized that they were losing the game. At the same time, now when they have got 8 to 10,000 Lashkar-e-Toba, Jaise Mohammed terrorists available to them, now they will try to pump in. And now all the terrorists which will now come will be battle hardened. They have seen the war type situation in Afghanistan. Now the case in point.
So two aspects to note here. One is OWG. What is OWG? We'll get into that in a bit. And that is the biggest challenge. That is the biggest challenge, which is overground workers. That is second aspect that we need to note and we need to focus on is that how now Pakistan does not need to worry about what is happening on its western border, but is going to focus on what is happening on its eastern borders with India, and all these battle-hardened terrorists that were fighting there are going to be ready to use here in Kashmir, and that is something that we need to avoid. So this is what we are looking at. Okay. Now let's move forward here.
They will even pump in even in winter, because their aim is to somehow ever send maximum terrorists in Jammu and Kashmir and ensure that terrorism can keep on boiling up the way it was happening.
So before I get to what is Overground Workers Network and who supports them, it is important to understand this, because this is the biggest problem in Kashmir. Another point to note here is hybrid warfare. All right. These are some, when in the previous classes that I've spoken to you about in essay writing tips and several of those other aspects too, I've spoken about key sentences and key words. So these are the keywords that you need to make note of. Hybrid warfare. If you use these kind of intelligent words in your answers, especially in your mains, this is what is going to make your answer different from anybody else, and it's going to ensure that the invigilator or the person who's correcting your papers understands that this person knows his or her stuff and is talking sense and is talking something different. That is what you need to note. Okay. So what is Overground Workers Network and who supports them? Let's listen now.
Terrorists have a very strong OGW network, which I witnessed when I was DGP immediately after Burhan's incident. If you recall, post Burhan Wani incident, how huge mobs used to be mobilized. So huge in a day, 50 to 60 stone pelting incidents used to take place. Any side you move, army, police, paramilitary, the roads were cut. They were blocked by electric poles, by trees, and dug. Many of the roads were dug. District headquarters were cut. So there's a huge net. No one can deny this in Kashmir. Which terrorists make best use of to know the movement of security forces, to identify the targets, to eliminate them, to even carry weapons from one place to the other, because they sometimes, let's say, terrorists move from Kupwara to South Kashmir. So terrorists will generally not carry ammunition and arms, weapons. They will use OGW network.
There you go. Very important point being made by the former DGP, talking about how the terrorists themselves move without any arms and ammunition, and quietly go through without being seen in the open. It is the OGW, Overground Network, that workers network, which help them carry the ammunition and which finally reaches the terrorists. And this is what needs dismantling, and this is what we need to focus on, right?
themselves, they'll go in different way. So there is a very strong network of upper ground workers. That is why our focus in 16 onwards has been to break this upper ground network, because this is more dangerous than terrorists. Terrorists, after all, come in front of you and they get eliminated. But this overground, so we must have registered thousands of cases. And I recall, I think Public Safety Act detentions, I must have gone for thousands of them, which actually broke the backbone. And unfortunately, that tempo does not continue with successive change in leadership, but that actually should continue. So these OGW networks in each district is actually made use of by terrorists for multiple purposes, for as I was saying, to identify, to carry arms, to using peer group to get new recruits. So all these networking is done. Now that is why I'll come to the point.
So killing terrorists will not do. We will need to dismantle the ecosystem itself. And how do we do that is what we are going to look at now.
Come to the point which I want to mention is the ecosystem which actually exists in Kashmir. We need to dismantle it. That is very important. Just killing terrorists will not solve your problem. Removing 370 and 35A will not solve your problem. We will continue to be fingered by ISI as long as boys keep joining terrorist ranks. So you need to ensure that no more.
Radicalization has to stop. That is as simple as that.
More recruits are available for terrorist ranks. For that, you have hundreds of madrasas running in Kashmir and thousands of them in all across India. Does somebody look into it? Where is the funding coming from? Jamaat-e-Islami run madrasas. Who is teaching them? Whether they are being imparted pure religious education, Islamic education, or are they serving as radicalizing centers? So I think somebody needs to keep a watch on. The President Macron of France came out with an action plan for his country to check the onslaught of radical Islamist political agenda, and he has done that. I think something like that we need to go for. As General Saab was mentioning, you have problems coming which are becoming visible in Kerala, in Bengal, in some cities of UP, in Hyderabad. You see the kind of statements such radical elements are making. I think today, like many other countries, have come out with an action plan after Taliban takeover of Afghanistan. I think India needs to think about it and come out with an action plan. That's very, very important. So
Mr. Ved is talking about an action plan. You know, it's great to have an action plan, and I strongly feel that we should have an action plan. But do we have the political will for this action plan is the big question. The moment the government starts talking about monitoring what's happening in madrasa, what's happening as far as religious preaching is concerned, immediately, questions are going to be raised. The secular handbook is going to be thrown at the government, and it's going to be difficult. Also, let's not forget, the government too is not, or the ruling dispensation is not bathed in milk. There are several inflammatory speeches that are made by members from within the ruling party itself. And this helps in polarization. This helps them achieve what they want to achieve. So will they want to give that up is the question. So it's good to have an action plan, but I don't see it happening anytime soon because politicians use it as a tool and they're not going to allow it to happen.
Warfare is what?
So we are witnessing a new hybrid type of warfare. Okay, more on this.
We have not, experienced so far because they look innocuous. You can't make out who has done this. Till now, we have not able to find out who were the perpetrators who have able to kill Makhan Lal Bindru as well as the teacher and the principal. We are only anticipating, saying that possibly they were the terrorists. They were all OGW because they have mixed up with the society, very difficult to identify. So therefore, this is a new challenge which has come, and we have to now coordinate that. Now, what the point which we're trying to convey is the youth which is coming from down below to seek a job, there is a better security system which we have to provide. And this was a false security system which possibly we gave to them. And we thought that the situation is returning to a normalcy. To some extent, it was a fact. You can find that in certain parts of you could never move without weapons. And you never seen an Indian flag flying there. But now even a Lal Chowk, you find Indian flag there, people moving without any security cover. So there is a change of environment, there is no doubt. But at the same time, undercurrents are there, and undercurrents have become more visible after what this hybrid warfare had done, target killing of Kashmiri Pandit and Kashmiri Sikh. And now, in case Kashmiri Pandit, which are about 5,000-6,000, Kashmiri Sikh, which are about 1.5 lakhs and 2 lakhs, in Singhpura and Patan, if they, under threat and fear, migrate from Valley to Jammu, then it will be a complete security failure on part of Indian government and security forces, because it will be very difficult for them to be brought them back. So this is the challenge. Now, as far as your point which you are saying is how coordination is done, the coordination is being done mainly by the civil society, by the police, as well as the civil administration. So that sense of security is given. As far as this Kashmiri Pandit and Kashmiri youth is concerned, which have migrated, and they have been given job by the Jammu and Kashmir civil administration. They are kept in a camp and the security is provided, and from there they are working.
So this is another point to note. Those who have been taken back to Kashmir, we have a domicile policy now that the government is strongly looking at and trying to repatriate all the Kashmiri Pandits and the minority community back to their areas, back to their homes in Kashmir. But it's not actually happening. So what is happening right now is there's a cordoned off area camp where they are living and operating out of, and that is where they go to work from, and that is where they live and reside. So it is more like a camp and not really them going back to their places of residence or them getting back their houses. So this is something that you need to note as well. And the government is providing them security from the outside to this camp, so to speak.
It is not that they have now gone back to the area where they belong. They may be working in those areas, but they are not staying there. They are staying in a... No, this was a new venture which was started by a government, a step in a right direction, that the jobs which are to be given to Kashmiri Pandit and other warfare has also brought a question mark to that security which was being provided. So that's...
So what's the best way forward? How do we deal with this situation? We listen to the experts.
See, number one, a heightened surveillance and heightened anti-infiltration grid on the border, which is very, very important, because as General pointed out, there is a danger of terrorists being pushed along with new arms towards Valley and to later on create problem in other parts of the country. Number two, as I said, a close watch of the society and the intelligence agencies on the madrasas, on the schools and masjids where radicalization is taking place. That is very important, not only in Kashmir, other parts of the country. Number three, to prevent incidents like what happened in Mumbai, what happened, attacks on Akshardham, on Raghunath Mandir in Jammu, Ayodhya in UP. This is with the intention of creating communal rights, and there is no change in the policy of ISI and the Pakistan Army. They will continue to engineer such incidents to create communal tensions in the country. So all these things, I think, apart from what I mentioned about action plan of France by President Macron. So all these need to be implemented. I think that's what you are going to see heightened activity in the coming winter and months ahead.
One is on line of actual control against China. You will find this winter, we have to be very alert. There are about 50 to 60,000 troops which are deployed on either side. So there again, the threat is looming large. Now, coupled with it, this infiltration attacks will be made now by Pakistan with new terrorists which are battle-hardened and equipped with a modern weapon. We have to make sure our counter-infiltration grid is very robust and stable. As far as hinterland is concerned, what DGP has already brought out, certain these measures have to be adopted. Two additional things. One is madrasa, fully agreed. Madrasa cannot be left to their own. They should not be given funds. And mosque and all, you cannot leave them without even monitoring what even Maulvis are saying. So far, it looks like that they are on the right track, but still monitor that. Then the CASO has to start, cordon search operation, which used to be there, on.
The general is talking about CASO, cordon and search operation. This is something that needs to continue. This is something that used to happen earlier, but it had stopped.
Information, it may create an inconvenience to a public, but that's a requirement of day. You can't do without it. In case you have to stop this new challenge called hybrid warfare. That is a second point. And third is that a sense of confidence has to be given to a minority combination like Sikh and Kashmiri Pandit, that the nation is with them. They must stay there in Kashmir Valley. Give them all protection which is required.
Finally, so what are the key takeaways from this discussion? Probable questions that you may get on this is there a solution to the Kashmir problem? How big an internal security challenge is militancy in Kashmir? Explain. These are some of the possible questions, or on these lines you may get these questions, and this is how you will address them.
Coming out of this discussion is that the result of what we are witnessing in Kashmir is Pakistan changing its strategy in the region. With multiple failed attempts to hurt India after the abrogation of special status, the deep state in Pakistan is resorting to a low investment, high return policy or strategy. The terrorists are trying to instill fear in the public. Terrorists are a big problem in the valley, but the bigger problem is the overground network to carry out.
All right. So that is that. So that is the end of this particular episode.
If you like the content, please like the video, subscribe, hit the bell icon, and share the video as well so that more people get to know about us.